Family, let me tell you something powerful today. The greatest battle you'll ever fight won't be in your business, your bank account, or your relationships. The greatest battle is in your mind. Because until you master your mindset, you will mismanage your miracles. See, God already designed success for you. It's built into the blueprint of your being. But if your thinking is small, your living will follow. The Bible says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." That means your external reality is only a reflection of your internal beliefs. You don't get what you want, you get what you believe. Family, I want you to understand something powerful. Your mindset determines your manifestation. Before you ever see success on the outside, you must conceive it on the inside. Everything that shows up in your life starts as a seed in your thoughts. The invisible always precedes the visible. The seen is born from the unseen. You can't experience what your mind hasn't first embraced. This is why the enemy attacks your thoughts. He knows if he can control your mind, he can control your life. Because what you continually meditate on becomes what you eventually manifest. Most people try to change their situation without changing their thinking. They want new fruit with the same roots. But until your mindset shifts, your results remain the same. The Bible says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." That means your thoughts are not just random, they are creative. They are shaping, forming, building, and directing your life, whether you realize it or not. If your thinking is limited, your living will be limited. If your thoughts are fearful, your experiences will reflect that fear. But when your mind becomes renewed, your reality begins to transform. You see, God designed your mind as the control center of your destiny. It's the steering wheel of your future. Your thoughts are either taking you closer to your purpose or pulling you further away from it. And the truth is, you can't think small and live big. You can't focus on lack and expect abundance. You can't meditate on defeat and expect victory. The world says, "I'll believe it when I see it." But the kingdom says, "You'll see it when you believe it." Everything begins with belief. When you think in alignment with truth, you start attracting opportunities that match that level of thinking. Your energy changes, your language changes, your habits change, because your mind sets the thermostat of your life. If your mind is set on failure, your behavior will subconsciously find ways to confirm it. If your mind is set on faith, your behavior will attract the results of that faith. That's why success is not something you pursue. It's something you prepare for by transforming the way you think. Think about this. God created the world with words, but those words came from his thoughts. He said, "Let there be light," and there was light. In the same way, your words are shaping your world because they come from your thoughts. When you speak, you are prophesying your future. Every word that comes out of your mouth is a reflection of your mental environment. So if you want to change what you're saying, you must change what you're thinking. Many people are waiting for life to get better, but life doesn't change by waiting. It changes by renewing. You can't afford to keep recycling the same thought patterns that have kept you stuck. You have to upgrade your mental operating system. Start thinking thoughts that are in harmony with abundance, purpose, and possibility. Stop meditating on what went wrong and start visualizing what can go right. Because when your mind is set on growth, everything else begins to align with it. You were never designed to think in scarcity. You were created in the image of a limitless God. That means limitation is a learned condition, not a permanent reality. Somewhere along the way, someone may have told you that you're not enough, that you can't achieve that dream, that you should just settle. But those were their limitations, not yours. Don't rent space in your mind to lies that contradict your potential. You have the power to evict every limiting belief and replace it with truth. When you start to see yourself the way God sees you, everything changes. You realize that you're not chasing success. Success is chasing the version of you that already believes. You stop comparing yourself to others because you understand your journey is divine. You stop doubting your ability because you know your assignment is greater than your insecurity. And you stop settling for average because you know average doesn't honor the greatness inside you. Every thought carries energy. Negative thoughts drain you, while empowering thoughts energize you. When you think thoughts of gratitude, confidence, and purpose, you raise your vibration to the frequency of favor. Doors begin to open, people begin to appear, resources begin to flow because your internal state becomes a magnet for divine alignment. So before you ask God for the next level, make sure your mindset is ready to sustain it, because God will never put new wine into old wineskins. He won't give you abundance if you're still thinking in scarcity. He won't trust you with leadership if you're still thinking like a follower. You've got to expand your capacity to believe before you can receive. You were born to manifest greatness, but greatness begins in your mind. Everything that will ever exist in your life will first be formed in your imagination. Your mindset is the factory where destiny is manufactured. What you think, you become what you imagine. You create what you expect, you attract. When you learn to think on purpose, speak with power, and believe with conviction, you'll begin to manifest on a level that others can't understand, but heaven already planned. Belief is the bridge between the spiritual and the physical. What that means is this: what you can't see yet already exists, but it's your belief that brings it from the invisible into the visible. Every promise, every dream, every goal you've ever had is already finished in the spirit. You're not trying to get it to happen. You're trying to align your belief with what has already been spoken over you. Belief is not something you wait to have once you see the evidence. Belief is the evidence before the evidence shows up. It's the inner conviction that says, I know it's done even when I don't see it yet. The reason most people live beneath their potential is not because God hasn't provided, but because they haven't believed. They're waiting for the manifestation before they commit to faith. But the spiritual realm doesn't operate that way. You don't see it, then believe it. You believe it, then you see it. Faith is not about reacting to your current situation. It's about responding to God's revelation. You have to see beyond the surface. You have to see with your spirit what your eyes can't yet detect. Because everything you desire to experience on the outside must first be believed on the inside. When God gives you a vision, he doesn't show you the details, he shows you the destination. And that destination is in the realm of the spirit, waiting for your belief to build the bridge. The distance between the promise and the manifestation is measured by the depth of your belief. If your belief is weak, your bridge is unstable. But when your belief is strong, you create a direct path for the spiritual to flow into the physical. This is why belief is not a passive concept. It's an active force. It shapes how you think, how you speak, how you act, and how you expect. Belief makes you behave differently. When you truly believe something, you align your actions with that conviction. You start walking as if it's already done. You stop asking for permission to be great. You stop negotiating with your limitations. You start showing up like you already have the victory, because belief creates momentum, and momentum manifests miracles. When you believe that you are who God says you are, you stop living from fear and start living from faith. And when you operate from faith, you release the spiritual power that turns possibility into reality. Your belief system is the foundation of your life system. If your beliefs are small, your results will be small. If your beliefs are rooted in lack, you'll always attract lack. But when your belief is rooted in truth, when it's grounded in divine possibility, your results will start to mirror that truth. You begin to experience overflow, abundance, and breakthrough because your belief is now in alignment with divine order. The spiritual realm is full of resources waiting for someone with enough belief to call them into existence. Every major move of God in history started with belief. Noah believed enough to build an ark before a drop of rain ever fell. Abraham believed enough to leave everything familiar without knowing where he was going. David believed enough to face a giant with nothing but a sling and a stone. Belief is not convenient, it's courageous. It requires you to act when it doesn't make sense. It demands that you trust what you heard more than what you see. Because the seen world is temporary, but the unseen is eternal. When you believe, you activate what already exists in eternity and allow it to manifest in time. Doubt delays what faith is trying to deliver. When you doubt, you interrupt the flow between heaven and earth. You disconnect from divine alignment, but belief reconnects you. It's like an invisible pipeline that carries spiritual substance into physical form. Every time you believe, you give permission for heaven's abundance to invade your reality. Your belief is not begging God to move. It's accepting that he already has. You're not waiting for the blessing. The blessing is waiting for your belief to catch up. Belief also determines your identity. You can't act consistently in a way that contradicts what you believe about yourself. If you believe you're broken, you'll behave like someone who deserves less. If you believe you're chosen, you'll carry yourself with confidence and purpose. Your belief defines your boundaries. It sets the standard for what you will tolerate and what you will pursue. That's why belief is not just about faith in God. It's about faith in the God within you. You were created in his image, which means the same creative power that spoke the universe into existence resides inside you. When you believe that, your words begin to carry authority. Your declarations become creative acts. You stop speaking your situation and start speaking your solution. Belief gives you the courage to move before the miracle. It's the audacity to act like it's done, even when nothing around you confirms it. It's standing in front of a closed door and thanking God for what's on the other side before it opens. Belief creates the bridge between what is promised and what is possible. And that bridge is not made of logic, it's made of conviction. It's built by consistency, maintained by gratitude, and strengthened through adversity. Because every time life tests your faith, it's giving you the opportunity to fortify your belief. You don't need to see the whole path to start walking. You just need to believe enough to take the next step. Every step you take in faith shortens the distance between your vision and your victory. When you believe, you create motion in the spirit. Things begin to shift, align, and accelerate in your favor. The unseen begins to organize itself to support your obedience, because belief doesn't just change what happens around you, it changes who you become while it happens. Obedience activates overflow. There are moments in life when you pray, when you declare, when you fast, and yet nothing seems to shift. It's not because God hasn't heard you, it's because obedience is the key that unlocks what prayer alone cannot. You can't substitute obedience with emotion. You can't shout your way into blessings you refuse to walk into. The kingdom operates by principles, and one of those principles is that obedience precedes abundance. The blessing is not waiting on your passion, It's waiting on your alignment. When God gives you an instruction, he's not testing your comfort, he's testing your trust. Obedience is not about understanding everything. It's about moving even when you don't. The moment you act on divine instruction, you activate divine provision. God never tells you to do something because he needs it. He tells you to do it because you need to become who you'll be on the other side of that obedience. Every instruction from heaven carries within it the seed of transformation. The outcome is not in the instruction itself, it's in your willingness to act on it. Most people delay their destiny because they debate with what God already made clear. They ask for confirmation when what they need is commitment. The truth is, you don't need another word. You need to obey the one you already received. Obedience is not about convenience. It's about covenant. It's a declaration that says, God, I trust your wisdom more than my logic. Every act of obedience is a vote of confidence in the character of God. It's your way of saying, even when I can't trace you, I still trust you. When you look at the stories of those who experienced overflow, every one of them had to obey first. Noah built an ark when there was no rain. Abraham left his homeland without a map. Peter cast his net one more time after catching nothing all night. The miracle always came after the movement. The supernatural follows obedience like a shadow follows light. When you move, heaven moves with you. But when you hesitate, heaven waits. Because obedience is heaven's permission slip to release abundance on earth. Obedience often doesn't make sense in the moment. It may look illogical, uncomfortable, or even costly, but it's always strategic. God sees the end from the beginning, and when he gives you an instruction, it's because he's preparing you for what you can't yet see. Your obedience today creates provision for your tomorrow. Sometimes what looks like sacrifice is actually set up. The thing you give up in obedience becomes the seed that produces the harvest you've been praying for. There's a difference between knowing the word and walking in it. Many people are spiritually informed, but not spiritually transformed because they stopped at revelation and never stepped into application. Obedience is the bridge between knowing and experiencing. You can memorize scripture, quote promises, and attend every conference, but until you apply what you know, you'll stay in the same place. Revelation without obedience leads to stagnation, but revelation acted upon produces elevation. Every act of obedience expands your capacity to receive. It trains your spirit to respond quickly to divine instruction. The more you obey, the more sensitive you become to direction. The less you obey, the more dull your discernment grows. Obedience is not a one-time event, it's a lifestyle. It's the daily discipline of saying yes to what aligns with your purpose and no to what distracts you from it. The more consistently you obey, the more consistently you live in overflow. Because overflow is not luck, it's the result of alignment. Sometimes obedience will pull you out of places you've grown comfortable in. It will stretch your faith and challenge your patterns. But that's how growth happens. You cannot step into a new season with old instructions. Every level of blessing requires a new level of obedience. God will never promote you beyond your willingness to listen. The instruction that seemed small may be the very one that shifts your entire life. Don't underestimate what seems simple. The miracle is often hidden in the mundane. When you obey, you align with divine timing. You place yourself in the right position at the right time for the right opportunities. The doors that were once closed start to open, not because you forced them, but because obedience gave you access. You don't have to chase blessings when obedience attracts them. Obedience doesn't just change your situation, it changes your spiritual atmosphere. It puts a demand on heaven to release what was already assigned to your life. Disobedience, on the other hand, delays destiny. It creates unnecessary detours. Every time you ignore instruction, you prolong the process. But when you obey, you accelerate manifestation. God doesn't need to adjust his promise. You just need to adjust your position. Obedience puts you in proximity to provision. It places you under the waterfall of divine flow. You can't control when the rain comes, but you can control whether you're standing under the cloud. Obedience is an act of faith, not fear. It's not about following rules. It's about walking in relationship. When you truly trust God, obedience becomes your natural response. You stop asking, what if this doesn't work? And start declaring, what if it does? You realize that your obedience is not losing something, it's gaining access to everything. Every step of obedience draws you closer to overflow because overflow is the inevitable result of alignment with divine instruction. Renewing your mind renews your results. Transformation never begins in the external, it begins internally. The life you live is a reflection of the thoughts you consistently entertain. You can't step into a new season with the same mental patterns that kept you stuck in the last one. The quality of your results is the evidence of the quality of your mindset. If you want to elevate your life, you must first elevate your thinking. The Bible says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, because true transformation doesn't come from effort, it comes from evolution. You can't behave your way into change without first believing your way into it. Renewal is not a one-time act, it's a continual process. The mind collects dust from every disappointment, every setback, every lie you've ever believed about yourself. If you don't renew it daily, those old thoughts begin to dominate your decisions. Renewal is like resetting your mental software. It's choosing to delete limiting beliefs and reinstall truth. It's reminding yourself that you're not defined by what happened to you. You're defined by what's happening within you. When you renew your mind, you no longer interpret life through the lens of fear or failure, but through faith and possibility. Most people try to change their results without changing their reasoning. They change their location, their relationships, their routines, but not their mindset. That's why the same problems keep reappearing in different forms. You can't fix a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. Renewal requires a shift in perspective. It means asking yourself, what if the problem isn't out there? What if the problem is how I've been thinking about it? The moment you take responsibility for your thoughts, you reclaim authority over your outcomes. Renewal is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about perceiving everything through purpose. When your mind is renewed, setbacks become setups, losses become lessons, and delays become preparation. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? Because the renewed mind sees differently. It doesn't focus on the obstacle. It focuses on the opportunity hidden within it. Every renewed thought is a seed that produces a new reality. The battle for your destiny will always begin in your thoughts. If the enemy can convince you to think small, he doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to limit you. He knows that if your mind is trapped, your potential is imprisoned. That's why renewing your mind is an act of warfare. Every time you replace doubt with faith, fear with courage, or bitterness with gratitude, you reclaim territory in your inner world. Renewal is not passive, it's intentional. You have to decide daily what thoughts you will allow to live in your mind, because whatever dominates your mind will eventually direct your life. Renewing your mind also requires new information. You can't keep feeding on negativity and expect positivity to grow. You must expose your mind to higher truths, greater ideas, and divine wisdom. What you consistently consume becomes your internal conversation. If you fill your mind with lack, you'll live in lack. But if you fill it with abundance, purpose, and gratitude, you'll begin to attract experiences that align with that frequency. The renewed mind doesn't wait for circumstances to improve before feeling peace. It creates peace through perspective. Your mind is a garden and your thoughts are seeds. Every thought you water grows, and every thought you neglect withers. The problem is many people spend more time watering weeds than nurturing flowers. They replay failures, rehearse fears, and relive pain, not realizing they're giving life to what they should have let die. Renewal means you choose to plant new seeds of vision, joy, and expectancy. You start focusing on what's ahead instead of what's behind. You recognize that the past may have shaped you, but it doesn't have the right to define you. When your mind is renewed, your words change. You stop speaking from frustration and start speaking from faith. You begin to declare possibilities instead of problems. The renewed mind understands that words are creative power. What you say consistently becomes what you see eventually. Every declaration you make in faith rewires your mind and reprograms your reality. This is why you must guard your language. Never say what you don't want to see. Speak what aligns with where you're going, not what you're going through. Renewal also transforms your emotions. When your thinking changes, your feelings follow. You stop reacting to life and start responding to it. You no longer need external validation to feel valuable because your value becomes anchored in truth, not approval. A renewed mind lives in peace, even in pressure. It carries confidence in uncertainty. It finds contentment even when everything around it looks chaotic, because when your inner world is stable, your outer world begins to reflect that stability. You can't pour new wine into old wineskins, and you can't step into a new level with an old mindset. The patterns that served you in the past might sabotage you in the future if you don't renew your thinking. Every level of growth demands a mental upgrade. Renewal doesn't mean abandoning who you are. It means evolving into who you were always meant to be. You begin to operate from identity instead of insecurity. You stop chasing success and start attracting it naturally because your mind is now aligned with divine flow. The renewed mind doesn't just think differently, it sees differently. It looks at problems and sees potential. It looks at impossibility and sees opportunity. It looks at pain and sees purpose. When you renew your mind, you no longer live by reaction, but by revelation. You start making decisions not out of fear of loss, but from the faith of gain. Renewal gives you clarity, direction, and divine confidence to walk boldly toward the future you've been called to create.